The notification sound from his phone pierced through the quiet morning air in General Santos City. Manny Pacquiao sat in his home office, steam rising from his freshly brewed coffee as the first rays of Philippine sunlight filtered through the windows. At 46, the legendary boxer had grown accustomed to the constant buzz of social media, but something about this particular alert made him pause his morning routine. Amir Khan's post appeared on his screen with stark clarity. The British-Pakistani fighter, now 38 and officially retired from professional boxing, had shared a reflective message about unfinished business in the sport. Khan's words carried weight beyond their simple construction, speaking of dreams deferred and opportunities that time had seemingly swept away. The post mentioned respect for legends who continued to inspire, and though no names were explicitly stated, the boxing community understood the underlying message. Pacquiao's weathered fingers, still bearing the calluses of countless training sessions, hovered over his phone screen. These hands had delivered thunderous combinations that echoed through arenas worldwide, yet now they trembled slightly with the weight of decision. The Filipino icon had always prided himself on responding to fellow fighters with dignity and respect, regardless of their nationality or background. The memories flooded back unbidden. Years ago, when both men were at their respective peaks, negotiations for a potential bout had circulated through boxing circles like wildfire. Promotional complications, scheduling conflicts, and the ever-present politics of professional boxing had conspired to keep the two warriors apart. Khan's lightning-fast hands and technical precision would have provided a fascinating contrast to Pacquiao's relentless aggression and southpaw stance. Jinky's footsteps echoed softly in the hallway as she prepared for her own busy day ahead. Their children were already stirring throughout the house, the familiar sounds of family life providing a comforting backdrop to Pacquiao's contemplation. Princess and Queen Elizabeth could be heard discussing their school projects, while the boys prepared for their respective training sessions. The normalcy of domestic routine stood in sharp contrast to the momentous decision forming in the champion's mind. The boxing world had been buzzing since Pacquiao's return to the ring against Mario Barrios. That controversial draw had reignited conversations about the Filipino's place in modern boxing, with critics and supporters equally vocal about his continued relevance at an age when most fighters had long since hung up their gloves. The performance had been vintage Pacquiao in many ways, displaying the heart and determination that had carried him through 8 different weight divisions. Social media platforms across the globe were already dissecting Khan's post with the intensity of ancient scholars examining sacred texts. Boxing analysts, former fighters, and passionate fans contributed their interpretations, each adding layers of speculation to an already complex narrative. The British fighter's timing seemed deliberate, coming at a moment when Pacquiao's future plans remained shrouded in mystery. Pacquiao's thumb moved across the screen as he began composing his response. Each word was carefully considered, understanding that his reply would be scrutinized by millions of followers and dissected by sports journalists worldwide. The Filipinos' approach to social media had always been measured and respectful, reflecting the values instilled in him during his impoverished childhood in Kibawe, Bukidnon. The weight of legacy pressed heavily on his shoulders as he crafted his message. Every response carried implications beyond the immediate moment, contributing to the narrative that would define how future generations remembered both fighters. Khan's career had been marked by spectacular victories and devastating defeats, creating a complex tapestry that mirrored boxing's inherent unpredictability. As Pacquiao's finger hovered over the send button, the morning sun climbed higher over General Santos City. The response he was about to share would ripple through the boxing community like stones thrown into still water, creating waves that would reach every corner of the sport. The legend was about to speak, and the world was listening. The cursor blinked steadily on Pacquiao's phone screen as he finalized his response to Khan's provocative post. 3 simple words formed the foundation of his reply, but their implications would reverberate through the boxing world with seismic force. The Filipino legend's message was characteristically humble, yet unmistakably confident, acknowledging Khan's respect while subtly indicating his own readiness for whatever challenges lay ahead. Within seconds of hitting the send button, Pacquiao's notification feed exploded into a symphony of alerts. The response spread across social media platforms like wildfire during dry season, with boxing enthusiasts, journalists, and fellow fighters sharing and analyzing every syllable. The simplicity of his words only amplified their impact, leaving room for interpretation while clearly signaling that the 8-division world champion remained far from finished with his storied career. In his training facility across town, Buboy Fernandez was conducting an early morning session with young local fighters when his phone began buzzing incessantly. The veteran trainer, who had been by Pacquiao's side through countless battles, immediately recognized the significance of the social media exchange. His weathered face broke into a knowing smile as he read both Khan's original post and Pacquiao's measured response. Understanding the chess match that was beginning to unfold in the public eye, the boxing media machinery shifted into overdrive within minutes. Sports journalists in London, New York, Las Vegas, and Manila began crafting articles that would dominate headlines for days to come. The narrative was irresistible. Two legendary fighters, both past their supposed prime, engaging in a digital dance that hinted at possibilities that had seemed lost to time. Khan's post had been the opening move, but Pacquiao's response transformed speculation into genuine anticipation. Across the Pacific Ocean in Bolton, England, Khan's own phone was experiencing a similar bombardment of notifications. The British-Pakistani fighter had expected some reaction to his reflective post, but the magnitude of Pacquiao's response and its immediate global impact exceeded even his most optimistic projections. The former unified light welterweight champion found himself at the center of a storm he had inadvertently created, yet one that felt strangely familiar and welcome. The timing of this social media exchange could not have been more perfect from a promotional standpoint. Boxing had been experiencing a renaissance of sorts, with veteran fighters proving that age was merely a number when combined with skill, determination, and the right motivation. Pacquiao's recent performance against Barrios had already demonstrated his continued relevance, while Khan's technical abilities remained sharp despite his official retirement from active competition. Promoters and matchmakers around the world began calculating possibilities with the intensity of mathematicians solving complex equations. The financial implications of a Pacquiao-Khan bout were staggering, particularly given the global appeal both fighters maintained in their respective markets. The Philippines would embrace any fight involving their beloved champion, while Khan's popularity in the United Kingdom and among boxing fans of Pakistani heritage remained substantial. Dionysia Pacquiao, the champion's mother, watched the unfolding drama from her home with the mixture of pride and concern that had characterized her relationship with her son's career for over 2 decades. She had witnessed his rise from poverty to global stardom, understanding better than anyone the fire that continued to burn within him despite his advancing years and accumulated wealth. The response also caught the attention of current champions and rising stars throughout the boxing world. Social media feeds filled with reactions from fighters across multiple weight divisions, each offering their perspective on the potential matchup, while positioning themselves within the broader narrative of boxing's evolving landscape. As the Philippine afternoon sun reached its peak, Pacquiao's simple response had already generated millions of interactions across various platforms. The boxing world was indeed on alert, just as the headlines would soon proclaim. 2 legends had engaged in digital combat, and the reverberations would be felt for weeks to come. The boxing world's reaction to Pacquiao's response unfolded like a carefully choreographed symphony, with each stakeholder adding their voice to the growing crescendo of anticipation. Within hours, the simple exchange between 2 legendary fighters had transformed from casual social media interaction into the most discussed topic in combat sports. The ripple effect extended far beyond the confines of boxing, capturing the attention of mainstream media outlets and casual sports fans who remembered both fighters from their respective golden eras. In Las Vegas, the epicenter of professional boxing, veteran promoters gathered in boardrooms and private offices to discuss the commercial possibilities that had suddenly materialized. The desert city had hosted some of the most memorable fights in boxing history, and the prospect of adding a Pacquiao-Khan bout to that legacy sent waves of excitement through the promotional community. Phone calls crisscrossed continents as deal-makers began the delicate process of exploring whether this social media spark could ignite into a full-scale promotional fire. The financial implications were staggering to contemplate. Pacquiao's drawing power in the Philippines remained undiminished, with his recent return against Barrios proving that Filipino boxing fans would support their hero regardless of age or circumstances. Khan's appeal in the United Kingdom and throughout the Pakistani diaspora added another lucrative dimension to potential negotiations. The combination of these two massive fan bases, coupled with the nostalgia factor of seeing two legends compete, created a promotional dream scenario. Television executives and streaming platform representatives began their own series of urgent discussions. The global appetite for premium boxing content had never been higher, with multiple networks and digital platforms competing aggressively for marquee events. A Pacquiao-Khan fight would represent exactly the type of content that could drive subscription numbers and advertising revenue to unprecedented levels. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, the reaction was nothing short of euphoric. Local sports media outlets dedicated entire programs to analyzing the social media exchange, with boxing experts and former fighters offering their perspectives on what a potential Khan bout might mean for Pacquiao's legacy. The Filipino people's relationship with their boxing icon transcended mere fandom. It represented national pride and the embodiment of their collective dreams and aspirations. The response from active fighters across multiple weight divisions added another layer of intrigue to the developing narrative. Current champions and contenders recognized that a high-profile Pacquiao fight could elevate the entire sport's profile, potentially creating opportunities for increased purses and media attention across the boxing landscape. Some expressed genuine excitement about the prospect, while others calculated how such an event might impact their own career trajectories. Khan's team in the United Kingdom found themselves fielding an unprecedented volume of inquiries from media outlets, promotional companies, and broadcasting networks. The former champion's representatives had to navigate carefully between maintaining the mystique that was building around the potential fight while avoiding commitments that might complicate future negotiations. The delicate balance between generating interest and preserving negotiating leverage required diplomatic skills that extended far beyond the boxing ring. Social media analytics revealed the global reach of the exchange, with engagement numbers climbing into the millions across multiple platforms. The conversation had transcended language barriers, with boxing fans from every continent contributing their thoughts and predictions. Memes, fan art, and speculative fight posters began appearing with remarkable speed, demonstrating the creative energy that the possibility had unleashed among the global boxing community. The timing of this development coincided perfectly with a broader renaissance in boxing's popularity. The sport had been experiencing renewed mainstream attention, with several high-profile fights capturing public imagination and driving significant pay-per-view numbers. A Pacquiao-Khan bout would represent the perfect culmination of this trend, combining nostalgia with genuine competitive intrigue. As the day progressed, the initial social media exchange had evolved into something much larger than either fighter had likely anticipated. The boxing world was indeed on alert, with every stakeholder from promoters to fans eagerly awaiting the next development in what was rapidly becoming one of the most anticipated potential matchups in recent memory. The morning after the social media exchange found Pacquiao in his private gym, where the familiar rhythm of leather against heavy bags provided a meditative backdrop to his contemplation. The Filipino legend's training routine had remained remarkably consistent throughout his career, beginning each day with the same dedication that had carried him from the streets of General Santos to the pinnacle of professional boxing. Today, however, each punch carried additional weight as he processed the magnitude of what his simple response had unleashed. Sweat dripped steadily from his brow as he worked through combinations that had become second nature over decades of refinement. The muscle memory remained sharp despite his 46 years, each movement flowing seamlessly into the next with the precision of a master craftsman. His body had absorbed countless hours of punishment throughout his legendary career, yet it continued to respond with the reliability that had made him one of boxing's most durable champions. Across the ocean in Bolton, Khan was experiencing his own moment of reflection within the confines of his personal training facility. The British-Pakistani fighter had maintained his physical conditioning even after announcing his retirement, understanding that a boxer's relationship with fitness extended far beyond active competition. His hands, still lightning quick despite the passage of time, moved through shadow boxing sequences that had once terrorized opponents across multiple weight divisions. The phone calls had begun early for both camps, with representatives from major promotional companies reaching out to gauge interest and explore possibilities. These initial conversations were conducted with the careful diplomacy that characterized high-stakes boxing negotiations, with each side probing for information while revealing as little as possible about their own position. The art of boxing promotion required patience and strategic thinking that rivaled the tactical considerations inside the ring itself. Manny Pacquiao observed her husband's increased intensity during training with the knowing eye of someone who had witnessed every phase of his remarkable career. She understood the subtle signs that indicated when Manny was seriously considering a significant fight, recognizing the shift in his demeanor that occurred when competitive fire began burning brighter. Their children had grown accustomed to these periods of heightened focus, understanding that their father's dedication to excellence required unwavering commitment. The financial projections being calculated in promotional offices around the world painted an increasingly attractive picture. Market research indicated that a Pacquiao-Khan bout could generate pay-per-view numbers that would rank among the highest in recent boxing history. The combination of Pacquiao's enduring popularity in Asia and Khan's strong following in Europe and the Middle East created a global audience that transcended traditional boxing demographics. Medical considerations inevitably entered the discussion as both fighters' teams began evaluating the physical demands of returning to elite-level competition. Pacquiao's recent performance against Barrios had demonstrated his continued ability to compete at the highest level, while Khan's extended period away from active competition raised questions about ring rust and conditioning. The medical clearances and comprehensive physical examinations that would be required represented just the beginning of a complex preparation process. Training camp logistics began occupying the thoughts of both fighters' support teams. The infrastructure required to prepare for a fight of this magnitude extended far beyond the fighters themselves, encompassing nutritionists, strength coaches, sparring partners, and medical staff. The selection of training locations, sparring partners, and preparation timelines would prove crucial to the success of any potential bout. The global boxing media continued their relentless coverage of the developing story, with journalists from major publications beginning to investigate the historical context of the potential matchup. Archives were searched for previous interactions between the fighters, while boxing historians provided analysis of how their respective styles might mesh in actual competition. The narrative was writing itself, but the most important chapters remained unwritten. As evening approached in both the Philippines and the United Kingdom, two legendary fighters found themselves at a crossroads that could define the final chapters of their storied careers. The boxing world remained on alert, waiting for the next development in a story that had captured the imagination of fight fans worldwide. The magnitude of the potential bout began to crystallize as both fighters retreated into private contemplation, each grappling with the profound implications that extended far beyond the confines of any boxing ring. Pacquiao found himself walking the familiar streets of General Santos City in the early evening, his presence drawing the usual warm greetings from locals who had watched his transformation from struggling youth to global icon. The weight of their expectations, their dreams projected onto his shoulders, had never felt more tangible than in this moment of decision. The Filipino champion's legacy was already secure in the annals of boxing history, yet the perfectionist within him continued to seek validation through competition. His 8-division world championships represented an achievement that would likely never be equaled, but the recent draw against Barrios had left questions unanswered about his current capabilities. Their victory over Khan could provide the definitive statement that his skills remained sharp enough to compete with elite-level opposition. In Bolton, Khan was experiencing his own internal struggle with the concept of legacy and unfinished business. His career had been marked by spectacular highs and devastating lows, creating a complex narrative that defied simple categorization. The British Pakistani fighter had achieved remarkable success, including Olympic silver and multiple world championships, yet certain defeats had overshadowed his accomplishments in the minds of casual boxing fans. The technical aspects of a potential matchup fascinated boxing purists who began analyzing the stylistic contrasts between the two fighters. Pacquiao's southpaw stance and relentless pressure had troubled orthodox fighters throughout his career, while Khan's exceptional hand speed and movement had historically given him advantages against aggressive opponents. The chess match between their respective styles promised to create compelling tactical battles that could unfold over 12 rounds. Age considerations inevitably entered the equation as both fighters confronted the reality of competing in their late 30s and 40s. Pacquiao's recent performance had demonstrated that his reflexes and power remained largely intact, but the accumulated damage from decades of elite competition could not be ignored. Khan's extended period away from active competition raised different concerns about ring rust and the ability to regain peak physical condition. The global boxing community began choosing sides as the potential fight gained momentum in public discourse. Pacquiao's supporters pointed to his recent activity and proven ability to perform against top-level opposition, while Khan's advocates highlighted his technical superiority and the motivation that would come from proving his critics wrong. The debate raged across social media platforms and boxing forums with passionate intensity. Financial negotiations behind the scenes were progressing with the careful deliberation that characterized major boxing events. Revenue projections continued to climb as market research revealed the global appetite for this particular matchup. The combination of nostalgia, competitive intrigue, and the star power of both fighters created a promotional dream that had executives from multiple networks and streaming platforms engaged in aggressive bidding wars. Training considerations began occupying both fighters' thoughts as they contemplated the physical demands of preparing for elite-level competition. Pacquiao's training regimen had remained remarkably consistent throughout his career, but the specific preparations required for Khan's unique style would demand tactical adjustments. The British fighter faced the challenge of returning to peak condition after an extended period away from serious training. The emotional toll of the decision weighed heavily on both fighters' families. Jinky Pacquiao had supported her husband through countless training camps and fights, understanding the sacrifices required for success at the highest level. Khan's family faced similar considerations as they contemplated the risks and rewards associated with a return to active competition. As night fell across 2 continents, the boxing world continued its vigil, waiting for official confirmation of what had begun as a simple social media exchange. The potential fight had captured imaginations and generated excitement that transcended the sport itself, creating a cultural moment that extended far beyond the boxing community. 2 legends stood at the threshold of one final chapter, with the entire sporting world watching their every move. The boxing world's anticipation reached fever pitch as rumors of serious negotiations began circulating through industry insiders and media outlets. Pacquiao's morning training session carried an intensity that his longtime sparring partners immediately recognized, the kind of focused aggression that typically preceded major fight announcements. Each combination landed with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, while his footwork displayed the fluid grace that had confounded opponents throughout his legendary career. The Filipino icon's team had begun conducting preliminary discussions with potential venues, exploring options that ranged from the familiar confines of Las Vegas to the possibility of staging the event in the Philippines or the United Kingdom. Each location carried distinct advantages and challenges, from revenue potential to logistical considerations that would impact everything from ticket sales to broadcast scheduling. The decision would ultimately influence not just the financial success of the event, but the entire atmosphere surrounding the fight. Khan's preparation had taken on a more serious tone as well, with the British-Pakistani fighter increasing his training intensity while maintaining the careful balance between conditioning and avoiding injury. His team had begun reaching out to potential sparring partners who could simulate Pacquiao's unique southpaw style and relentless pressure. The search for appropriate preparation would prove crucial, as Khan's success would largely depend on his ability to neutralize Pacquiao's aggressive approach while capitalizing on his own technical advantages. The media circus surrounding the potential bout had begun to take shape, with major boxing publications assigning their top writers to cover every development in the evolving story. Press conferences, training camp access, and exclusive interviews were being negotiated as part of the broader promotional package. The narrative possibilities were endless, from the redemption angle for Khan to the legacy-defining opportunity for Pacquiao. Television and streaming executives found themselves engaged in increasingly competitive bidding wars as the commercial potential of the fight became clearer. Market research indicated that the global audience for a Pacquiao-Khan bout could exceed previous projections, particularly given the international appeal of both fighters. The combination of pay-per-view revenue, international broadcast rights, and streaming subscriptions created a financial landscape that had promotional companies salivating at the possibilities. The technical preparations required for such a high-profile event had begun in earnest, with venue scouts evaluating potential locations based on capacity, infrastructure, and logistical considerations. The production requirements for a fight of this magnitude extended far beyond the ring itself, encompassing everything from lighting and sound systems to security protocols and media facilities. Every detail would need to be perfect to match the significance of the occasion. Pacquiao's political responsibilities in the Philippines added another layer of complexity to the planning process. His duties as a senator required careful scheduling to ensure that his training camp and fight preparation would not conflict with important legislative sessions. The balancing act between his political career and boxing ambitions had become increasingly delicate, as both demanded significant time and energy commitments. The global boxing community continued to buzz with speculation about the potential matchup, with former champions and current contenders offering their predictions and analysis. Social media platforms remained flooded with fan-generated content, from amateur fight breakdowns to artistic renderings of potential poster designs. The enthusiasm was infectious, spreading beyond traditional boxing audiences to capture the attention of mainstream sports fans. Khan's extended period away from active competition had become a central talking point in the developing narrative. Boxing analysts debated whether ring rust would prove to be a significant factor, while others argued that his technical skills and natural ability would overcome any conditioning concerns. The uncertainty added an element of intrigue that made the potential fight even more compelling to casual observers. As the sun set over General Santos City, Pacquiao completed another grueling training session with the satisfaction of a craftsman perfecting his art. Across the world, Khan was experiencing similar dedication to his preparation, understanding that this opportunity might represent his final chance to add a defining victory to his complex legacy. The storm was gathering momentum, and the boxing world waited with bated breath for the official announcement that would transform speculation into reality. The decisive moment arrived on a humid Thursday morning in General Santos City, as Pacquiao sat across from his closest advisors in the conference room of his training facility. The walls, adorned with championship belts and photographs from his storied career, seemed to whisper the weight of history as the final details of the Khan negotiation were presented for his consideration. Every clause, every percentage point, and every contractual obligation had been scrutinized with the intensity that had characterized his approach to boxing throughout his legendary career. The financial terms exceeded even the most optimistic projections, with guaranteed purses that would ensure both fighters received compensation worthy of their legendary status. The revenue-sharing structure reflected the global appeal of both combatants, acknowledging Pacquiao's dominance in Asian markets while recognizing Khan's substantial following throughout Europe and the Middle East. The numbers represented more than mere compensation. They validated the enduring commercial value of two fighters who had transcended their sport to become cultural icons. Across the Atlantic, Khan was conducting his own final deliberations in the privacy of his Bolton home. The British-Pakistani fighter had spent sleepless nights weighing the risks and rewards of returning to elite-level competition after his extended hiatus. His family's concerns about the physical dangers inherent in professional boxing competed with his burning desire to silence critics who had questioned his legacy and courage throughout his career. The venue selection had ultimately favored a neutral location that would maximize global accessibility and revenue potential. Las Vegas emerged as the preferred destination, offering the infrastructure and promotional expertise necessary to stage an event of this magnitude. The desert city's history of hosting legendary boxing matches added gravitas to the proceedings, while its central location between the fighters' respective time zones would facilitate optimal broadcast scheduling for international audiences. Medical clearances had been completed for both fighters, with comprehensive examinations revealing that despite their advancing years, both men remained physically capable of competing at the highest level. Pacquiao's recent activity provided confidence in his current condition, while Khan's extended training regimen had restored much of the physical conditioning that had made him a formidable opponent during his prime years. The undercard was beginning to take shape as promotional companies sought to create a complete entertainment package worthy of the main event's significance. Rising stars and established contenders were being considered for supporting bouts that would enhance the overall value proposition for pay-per-view purchasers and live attendees. The goal was to create an evening of boxing that would be remembered as a historic celebration of the sport. Training camp logistics had been finalized, with both fighters selecting locations that would optimize their preparation while minimizing distractions. Pacquiao would remain in the Philippines for the majority of his camp before relocating to the United States for final preparations. Khan had chosen to divide his training between the United Kingdom and a specialized facility in the United States that could provide the specific sparring partners needed to simulate Pacquiao's unique style. The promotional campaign was being designed to capture the imagination of both hardcore boxing enthusiasts and casual sports fans. The narrative threads were compelling. Pacquiao's quest to prove that age was merely a number, Khan's opportunity for redemption, and the long-awaited resolution of a matchup that had tantalized boxing fans for over a decade. As the final signatures were prepared, both fighters understood that they were about to embark on journeys that would define the concluding chapters of their remarkable careers. The boxing world's alert status was about to be justified, as two legends prepared to settle their business inside the squared circle where all boxing debates were ultimately resolved. The black ink dried on the contracts as both fighters affixed their signatures to documents that would transform months of speculation into boxing reality. Pacquiao's steady hand moved across the paper with the same precision that had guided his punches throughout 8 weight divisions, while thousands of miles away, Khan completed his own signing ceremony surrounded by his team and family members who had supported him through every triumph and setback of his remarkable career. The official announcement sent shockwaves through the global boxing community that exceeded even the most optimistic predictions. Social media platforms crashed temporarily under the weight of simultaneous reactions from millions of fight fans worldwide. The simple tweet that had started this journey now seemed prophetic, as if both fighters had somehow known that their digital exchange would culminate in this moment of boxing history. Las Vegas immediately began preparations for what promoters were already calling the fight of the decade. The MGM Grand Garden Arena was secured for the event, with preliminary ticket sales indicating that demand would far exceed the venue's capacity. Hotel reservations spiked across the city as boxing enthusiasts from every continent began planning their pilgrimages to witness this historic encounter between two legends of the sport. The financial implications rippled through the boxing industry like seismic waves. Pay-per-view projections climbed to unprecedented levels as international broadcasters engaged in fierce bidding wars for regional rights. The global appetite for this particular matchup had proven even stronger than industry experts had anticipated, validating the commercial instincts that had driven the complex negotiations to their successful conclusion. Training camps would commence within weeks, with both fighters facing the monumental task of preparing their bodies and minds for elite-level competition. Pacquiao's team had already begun assembling sparring partners who could replicate Khan's lightning-fast combinations and elusive movement patterns. Meanwhile, Khan's preparation would focus on developing strategies to neutralize Pacquiao's relentless pressure, while capitalizing on his own technical advantages. The undercard was rapidly taking shape as promotional companies sought to create a complete entertainment package worthy of the main event's significance. Rising contenders and established veterans were being matched in supporting bouts that would enhance the overall value for both live attendees and pay-per-view purchasers. The goal was to create an evening that would be remembered as a celebration of boxing's enduring appeal. Media obligations would intensify in the coming weeks, with both fighters committed to extensive promotional tours that would span multiple continents. Press conferences, training camp visits, and exclusive interviews were scheduled to build anticipation while providing fans with unprecedented access to the preparation process. The promotional campaign would be as carefully choreographed as the fight itself. As news of the signed contract spread across the globe, the boxing world finally understood why it had been placed on alert. Two legends had committed to settling their business inside the squared circle, where all debates would ultimately be resolved through skill, determination, and the warrior spirit that had defined both of their extraordinary careers. The countdown had officially begun, and the sporting world would never be quite the same. What had started as a simple social media exchange had evolved into boxing's most anticipated event, proving once again that in the sweet science, anything was possible when legends decided to write one final chapter.